Welcome to Executive Order Watch.
The immigrants have arrived.
I know. I have the package.
In general, any payment in set one limit of a third-party network transaction read 2 required to be shown on a return required under 3 section 6050W, which is made during any calendar year shall be treated as a reportable pay 5 meant only if 6. The aggregate number of transactions with respect to the participating payee during such calendar year exceeds the number of transactions specified in section 6050W. The aggregate amount of transactions with respect to the participating payee during such calendar year exceeds the dollar amount specified in section 6050W at the time of such payment. Exception if third-party network transactions made in prior year were reportable. Subparagraph shall not apply with respect to payments to any participating payee during any calendar year if one or more payments in settlement of third-party network transactions made by the payer to the participating payee during the preceding calendar year were reportable payments. 900. Effective date. The amendment made 1 by this subsection shall apply to calendar years beginning after December 31st, 2024. SEC 11105. Increase in threshold for requiring in 4 formation, reporting with respect to 5 certain payees. G. Section 6041 is amended by 7 striking $600 and inserting $2,000. IA. Section 6041 is 9 amended by adding at the end the following new sub 10 section 11. IA, in the case of any 12 calendar year after 2026, the dollar amount in subsection 13 shall be increased by an amount equal to 14. Such dollar amount multiplied by 15. The cost of living adjustment determined 16 under section 1 for such calendar year, deter 17 mined by substituting calendar year 2025 for 18 endar year 2016 in subparagraph thereof. If any incur the preceding sense is not a mul 20 tipple of $100, such increase shall be rounded to the nearest 21 multiple of $100. ARR 23S. Section 6041A is amended by 20 striking is $600 or more and inserting equals or x 25. 901. Exceeds the dollar amount in effect for such calendar year under section 6041. ABW section 3406 is amended by striking $600 in subparagraph, inserting the dollar amount in effect for such calendar year under section 6041, and by striking only or aggregate for calendar year is $600 in the heading and inserting only if in excess of threshold. Section 6041 is amended by striking taxable year and inserting calendar year. Effective D. The amendments made by this section shall apply with respect to payments made after December 31st, 2025. SEC 111,106. Repeal of excise tax on indoor tanning services. IG. Subtitle D is amended by striking Chap 49 and by striking the item relating to such chapter in the table of chapters of such subtitle. The heading of section 6041 is amended by striking $600 million and inserting ET. 902. ED. The amendments made by 1 this section shall apply to services performed after the date of the enactment of this Act. SEC 11107. Exclusion of interest on loans secured for by rural or agricultural real prop 56. IG Part 3 of Subchapter B of Chap 7-1, as amended by the preceding provisions of this Act. 8 is amended by inserting after Section 139J the following 9 new section, 10 SEC. 139K interest on loans secured by rural or 11 agricultural real property. Well, IG gross income shall not include 13. 25% of the interest received by a qualified lender. 14 on any qualified real estate loan. 50. QL, for purposes of this sex extension, the term qualified lender means 17. Any bank or savings association, the Depot 18, its of which are insured under the Federal Deposit 19 Insurance Act 20. Any state or federally regulated insurance 21 company 22. Any entity wholly owned directly or Indy 23 rectly by a company that is treated as a bank hold 24. 903. Company for purposes of Section 8 of the International Banking Act of 1978 if such entity is organized, incorporated, or established under the laws of the United States or any state of the United States. The principal place of business of such entity is in the United States. Any entity wholly owned, directly or indirectly, by a company that is considered an insurance holding company under the laws of any state, if such entity satisfies the requirements described in subparagraphs and of paragraph, and with respect to interest received on a qualified real estate loan secured by real estate described in subsection. Any federally chartered instrumentality of the United States established under Section 8.1 of the Farm Credit Act of 1971. QREL for purposes of this section. I. The term qualified real estate loan means any loan secured by 904 rural or agricultural real estate or a leasehold mortgage on rural or agricultural real estate made to a person other than a specified foreign entity and made after the date of the enactment of this section and before January 1st, 2029. For purposes of the preceding sentence, the determination of whether property securing such loan is rural or agricultural real estate shall be made as of the time the interest income on such loan is accrued. R. For purposes of subparagraphs and a paragraph, a loan shall not be treated as made after the date of the enactment of this section to the extent that the proceeds of such loan are used to refinance a loan which was made on or before the date of the enactment of this section. 905. R. Rural or agricultural real estate. The term rural or agricultural real estate means any real property which is substantially used for the production of one or more agricultural products. Any real property which is substantially used in the trade or business of fishing or seafood processing and any aquaculture facility. CWS 265. Qualified real estate loans shall be treated as obligations described in Section 265, the interest on which is wholly exempt from the taxes imposed by this subtitle. CA. The table of sections for Part 3 of Subchapter B of Chapter 1, as amended by the preceding provisions of this Act, is amended by such term shall not include any property which is not located in a state or a possession of the United States. Aquaculture facility. The term aquaculture facility means any land, structure, or other appurtenance that is used for aquaculture. 906. Inserting after the item relating to Section 139J the full one lowing new item 2 Sec 139K, interest on loans secured by rural or agricultural real property. ED. The amendments made by 3 this section shall apply to taxable years ending after the date of the enactment of this Act. Wait. Treatment of certain qualified sound 6 recording productions. So, 8 Section 181 is amended by striking qualified film 9 or television production and any qualified live theatrical 10 production and inserting qualified film or television 11 production, any qualified live theatrical production, and 12 any qualified sound recording production. 13. DL. Section 181 is 14 amended by adding at the end the following new subpara 15 graph. 16. Qualified sound recording pro 17. Paragraph shall not apply to so 18 much of the aggregate cost of any qualified 19 sound recording production, or to so much of 20 the aggregate cumulative cost of all such quali 20 wide sound recording productions in the taxable 22 year, as exceeds $150,000. 23. ODH for a Section 181 is amended by 25. 907. Striking qualified film or television production or any one qualified live theatrical production and inserting quali 2-fied film or television production. Any qualified live theat 3 Reichel production or any qualified sound recording product portion. E. Section 181 is amended by 6 striking qualified film or television production or any 7 qualified live theatrical production and inserting quali 8-fied film or television production. Any qualified live theat 9 Reichel production or any qualified sound recording product, tension. QSRP 12D, Section 181 is amended by redesignating sub-13 sections and as subsections and respect 14 Tively, and by inserting after subsection the following 15 new subsection, 16. QSRP 17 for purposes of this section, the term qualified sound re-18 recording production means a sound recording produced 20 and recorded in the United States. 20. AT, Section 181.22 is amended by striking qualified film and television pro 23 productions or qualified live theatrical productions, and in 24 certain qualified film and television productions, qualified 25. 908. Live theatrical productions and qualified sound recording 1 productions. D. Q while a found recording product portion as qualified property. Section 5168 is amended 6. By striking or at the end of sub 7 clause, by inserting or at the end of sub 8 clause, and by inserting after sub clause 9 the following. 10, which is a qualified sound 11 recording production of section 181, which is 13 placed in service before January 1st. 14/20/29. For which a deduction would 15 have been allowable under section 181.16, without regard to subsection 17, and of such section or this 18 section and in 19. In sub-clauses and by striking without regard to sub-21 sections, in both places it appears 22, and inserting without regard to subsections 23. 24. 909. Production placed in service. Section 168 is amended by striking and at the end of clause, by striking the period at the end of clause and inserting, and by adding after clause the following. A qualified sound recording production shall be considered to be placed in service at the time of initial release or broadcast. The heading for section 181 is amended to read as follows. Treatment of certain qualified productions. The table of sections for Part 6 of Subchapter B of Chapter 1 is amended by striking the item relating to Section 181 and inserting the following new item. Sec. 181. Treatment of certain qualified productions. SCC 111,109. Modifications to low-income housing credit. ED. The amendments made by this section shall apply to productions commencing in taxable years after the date of the enactment of this Act. 910. IN General, Section 42 is one amended, 2. By striking in 2021 and inserting 3 2021, 2026, 2027, 2028, and 2029 and 4. By striking 5 in the heading and inserting 6. Effective date. The amendments made 8 by this subsection shall apply to calendar years after 9/25. Tax BFR 11. 12. Section 42 is amended 13 by striking paragraph and inserting the full 14 lowing 15. Special rule where minimum 16% of buildings is financed with 17 exempt bonds subject to volume 18. For purposes of subparagraph, Para 19 graph shall not apply to any portion of the 20 credit allowable under subsection, with Re 21 spec to a building if 22. 50% or more of the aggr 23 gate basis of such building and the land on 24, which the building is located, is financed by 25. 911. One or more obligations described in subpara 1 graph, or 2, 25% or more of the Ag 3 aggregate basis of such building, and the land 4 on which the building is located is financed 5 by 1 or more qualified obligations, and 6, 1 or more of such qualified obligations. 8 are part of an issue, the 9 issue date of which is after December 10th, 31, 2025, and 11 provide the financing for 12 not less than 5% of the aggr 13 gate basis of such building and the 14 land on which the building is located. Qualified obligation. For per 16 poses a subparagraph, the term quali 17 fied obligation means an obligation which is date 18 scribed in subparagraph and which is part 19 of an issue, the issue date of which is before January 20th, 2030. 21. E 22, 23, 24. A general amendment made by this subsection shall apply to buildings. 912. Placed in service in taxable years beginning 1 after December 31st, 2025. Are rehabilitation expenditures 3 treated as separate new building? In 4 the case of any building with respect to which 5 any expenditures are treated as a separate new 6 building under section 42 of the Internal 7 Revenue Code of 1986. For purposes of sub 8 paragraph, both the existing building and 9, the separate new building shall be treated as 10, having been placed in on the date. Such 11 expenditures are treated placed in service 12 under section 42 of such code. 13. TSA PC 16. I section 42 is 17 amended by inserting before the period the full 18 lowing, and in the case of buildings placed in 19 service after December 31st, 2025, and before January 20th, 2030, any Indian area or rural area. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Indian area, rural area. Section 42 is amended by redesignating subclause as subclause, and by inserting after subclause the following new subclauses. 913. Indian area. For purposes of subclause, the term Indian area means any Indian area of the Native American Housing Assistance and Self-Determination Act 1996, and any housing area of such act. For purposes of subclause, the term rural area means any non-metropolitan area, or any rural area as defined by Section 520 of the Housing Act of 1949, which is identified by the Qualified Allocation Plan under subsection. Eligible buildings. Section 42, as amended by paragraph, is further amended by adding at the end the following new subclause: special rule for buildings in Indian areas. In the case of an area which is a difficult development area solely because it is an 914 Dian area, a building shall not be one treated as located in such area unless 2 such building is assisted or financed 3 under the Native American Housing 4 Assistance and Self-Determination 5 Act of 1996-6, or the project sponsor is an Indian 7 tribe. A tribally designated House 9 entity 10 of such act, or 11 wholly owned or controlled by such and 12 Indian tribe or tribally designated 13 housing entity. E. The amendments made 15 by this subsection shall apply to buildings placed in 16 service after December 31st, 2025. SC of printing manual. Increased gross receipts threshold 18 for small manufacturing businesses. IG section 448 is amended by re-20 designating paragraph as paragraph, and by insert 21ing after paragraph the following new paragraph, 22. GROS receipts test for Manufact 23 Turing taxpayers. In the case of a Manufact 24, 915 Turing taxpayer, Paragraph shall be applied by one substituting $80 million for $25 million. Section 8448 is amended by redesignating paragraph as 9 paragraph and by inserting after paragraph the following new paragraph: manufacturing taxpayer. I in general. The term manufacturing taxpayer means a corporation or partnership substantially all the gross receipts of which, during the 3 taxable year period described in subsection, are derived from the lease, rental, license, sale, exchange, or other disposition of qualified products. Qualified product. For purposes of subparagraph, the term qualified product means a product that is both tangible personal property, which is not a food or beverage prepared in the same building as a retail establishment in 916, which substantially similar property is sold, 1, to the public, and 2, produced or manufactured by the 3 taxpayer in a manner which results in a 4 substantial transformation of the 6 property comprising the product. A. Solely for per 8 poses of determining whether a taxpayer is a 9 manufacturing taxpayer under subparagraph 10. Gross receipts shall be determined 12 under the rules of paragraphs and 13 of subsection, and 14 for purposes of subsection 15 in applying section 52. The term trade 16 or business shall include any activity 17 treated as a trade or business under par 18 graph or of section 469. 2. The amendments made by 23 this section shall apply to taxable years beginning after 24/31/2025. 25,917. SEC 111,111. Global intangible low taxed income to 1. Determined without regard to certain 2 income derived from services per 3 formed in the Virgin Islands. IG, section 951A is 5 amended by striking at the end of subclause 6 by striking over at the end of subclause and insert 7N and by adding at the end the following new 8 subclause. 9 in the case of any specified 10 United States shareholder, any quali 11 fied Virgin Islands services income 12 over 13. Definitions in Section 14951A is amended by adding at the end the following 15 new subparagraph 16. Provisions related to qualified 17 Virgin Islands services income. For per 18 poses of subparagraph 19. Q qualified Virgin Islands 20 services income. The term qualified 21 Virgin Islands services income means any 22 gross income which satisfies all of the full 23 lowing requirements. 24. Such gross income is comp 25 pensation for labor or personal serve 26. 918. ICE is performed in the Virgin Islands by a corporation formed under the laws of the Virgin Islands. Such gross income is attributable to services performed from within the Virgin Islands by individuals for the benefit of such corporation. Such gross income is effectively connected with the conduct of a trade or business within the Virgin Islands. Specified United States. The term specified United States shareholder means any United States shareholder which is an individual trust or estate, a closely held C corporation, if such corporation acquired its direct or indirect equity interest in the foreign corporation which derived the qualified Virgin Island services income before December 31st, 2023. 919. The Secretary 1 shall prescribe such regulations or other 2 guidance as may be necessary or a Pro 3 Pri 8 to carry out this subparagraph and 4 subparagraph, including regulations or other guidance to prevent the 6 abuse of such subparagraphs. The amendments made by 8 this section shall apply to taxable years of foreign corpora, 9 shins beginning after the date of the enactment of this 10 Act, and to taxable years of United States shareholders 11 with or within which such taxable years of foreign corpora 12 shins end. 30 SC 111 extension and modification of Clean 14 fuel production credit. PFF 16. IN General, Section 45Z is 17, amended 18. In clause by striking in 19 at the end 20. In clause by striking the period at 21 the end and inserting and 22. By adding at the end the following new 23 clause, 24. 920. Such fuel is exclusively derived from a feedstock which was produced or grown in the United States, Mexico, or Canada. E. The amendments made by this subsection shall apply to transportation fuel sold after December 31st, 2025. Determination of ER. IN General. Section 45Z is amended by adding at the end the following new clauses. Exclusion of indirect land use changes. Notwithstanding clauses and the life cycle greenhouse gas emissions shall be adjusted as necessary to exclude any emissions attributed to indirect land use change. Any such adjustment shall be based on regulations or methodologies determined by the Secretary in consultation with the Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency and the Secretary of Agriculture. Animal manures. For purposes of the table described in clause with respect to any transportation fuels. 921. Which are derived from animal manure. A one distinct emissions rate shall be provided, 2 with respect to each of the specific feed, 3 stocks used to such produce such fuel, 4 which shall include dairy manure, swine 5 manure, poultry manure, and such other 6 sources as are determined appropriate by 7 the Secretary. See on forming amendment. Section 45Z is amended by striking clauses and inserting clauses. And 9, 10, 11, 12. The amendments made 13 by this subsection shall apply to emissions rates Pub 14 list for taxable years beginning after December 15, 31, 2025. E. Extension of CFP 7C. Section 45Z is amended by striking Decem 18 ber 31, 2027 and inserting December 31st, 2031. 19. Sec. 21. IN General. Section 45Z is amended 22 by adding at the end the following new paragraph, 23. Restrictions relating to prohibited 24 foreign entities. 25. 922. No credit determined under subsection shall be allowed under Section 38 for any taxable year, beginning after the date of enactment of this paragraph, if the taxpayer is a specified foreign entity. The prohibited foreign entity. No credit determined under subsection shall be allowed under Section 38 for any taxable year beginning after the date which is 2 years after the date of enactment of this paragraph if the taxpayer is a foreign influenced entity. Effective date. The amendment made by this subsection shall apply to taxable years beginning after the date of enactment of this Act. SC 111,113. Restoration of taxable REIT subsidiary asset test. Section 856 is amended by striking 20% and inserting 25%. ED. The amendment made by this section shall apply to taxable years beginning after December 31st, 2025. 923. Part 3, Investing in the Health of Rural America and Main Street. SEC 111,201. Expanding the definition of rural emergency hospital under the Medicare program. IG Section 1861 of the Social Security Act is amended. In subparagraph by striking the period at the end and inserting N. In the case of a facility described in paragraph, submits an application under Section 1866 to enroll under this title as a rural emergency hospital. In subparagraph, by striking the detailed transition plan and all that follows through such paragraph and inserting the detailed transition plan described in clause of such paragraph or the assessment of healthcare needs described in clause of such paragraph as applicable. By adding at the end the following new subparagraph. 924. In the case that such facility is located in a state that as of January 1st, 2027, provides for the licensing of rural emergency hospitals under state or applicable local law, as described in paragraph. Not later than December 31st, 2027. In the case that such facility is located in a state that, as of January 1st, 2027, does not provide for the licensing of such rural emergency hospitals under state or applicable local law, not later than the date that is 1 year after the date on which such state begins to provide for such licensing. In the case that such facility is located less than 35 miles away from the nearest hospital, critical access hospital, or rural emergency hospital as of the date on which such facility submits an application under Section 1866 to enroll under this title as a rural emergency hospital, beginning not later than 1 year after the end of the first full cost reporting period for which the facility is so enrolled, demonstrates annually in a form and manner 925, determined appropriate by the Secretary, that more than 50% of the services furnished for the most recent cost reporting period were services described in paragraph, as determined based on discharges of individuals entitled to benefits under Part A or enrolled under Part B during such cost reporting period. In paragraph, by redesignating subparagraphs and as clauses and respectively and adjusting the margins accordingly, by striking a facility and inserting a facility, by adding at the end the following new subparagraph, additional facilities. Beginning January 1st, 2027, a facility described in this paragraph shall also include a facility that, at any time during the period beginning January 1st, 2014, and ending December 26th, 2020, was a critical access hospital, or was a subsection hospital with not 926, more than 50 beds located in a county in a too rural area. And 4, as of December 27th, 20, was not N5 rolled in the program under this title under Section 1866. And 7, in paragraph 8, in subparagraph 9, in subclause by striking the 10 period at the end and inserting and 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. By redesignating subclauses through as items through, respectively, and adjusting the margins accordingly. By striking including a detailed and inserting including, except in the case of a facility described in paragraph, a detail. By adding at the end the following new subclause. In the case of a facility described in paragraph, an assessment of the healthcare needs of the county or AQUIVA. 927. Lent unit of local government in which one such facility is located, which shall include a description of the services furnished by the facility during the 5 period that such facility was enrolled 6 in the program under this title under 7 Section 1866, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 6, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. A description of the reasons that the facility as of December 27th, 2020 was no longer so enrolled. The population of such county. The percentage of such population who are individuals entitled to benefits under Part A or enrolled under Part B. A description of any lack of access to health care services experienced by such individuals, and an explanation of how reopening the facility as a rural emergency hospital would mitigate such lack of access. 928. Section 11834 of the Social Security Act 2 is amended 3. In paragraph, by inserting, except that, in the case of a facility described in Section 1861 that, as of the date on which such facility submits an application under Section 1866 to enroll under this title as a rural emergency hospital, is located less than 35 miles away from the nearest hospital, critical access hospital, or rural emergency hospital, such increase shall not apply before the period at the end. In paragraph, by inserting that, as of the date on which such facility submits an application under Section 1866 to enroll under this title as a rural emergency hospital, is located less than 10 miles away from the nearest hospital, critical access hospital, or rural emergency hospital, after rural emergency hospital. 929. Subtitle C, Make America Again 2. Part 1, Working Families Over Elites 3 SE. 11001. Termination of previously owned Clean 4 vehicle credit. G. Section 25E is amended by 6 striking December 31st, 2032, and inserting December 7th, 31, 2025. ED. The amendment made by 9. This section shall apply to vehicles acquired after December 10, 31, 2025. 11. SEC 112,002. Termination of clean vehicle credit. 12. IG Section 30D is amended 13. By redesignating subsection as sub 14 section and 15. In subsection as so redesignated by 16 striking December 31st, 2032, and inserting D17 December 31, 2026. SRTY 2026. Second 1930D is amended by inserting after subsection the 20 following new subsection 21. DRA 2026. I, with respect to any vehicle 23 placed in service after December 31st, 2025, such V24 vehicle shall not be treated as a new clean vehicle for 25. 930. Purposes of this section, if during the period beginning on December 31st, 2009, and ending on December 31st, 2025, the number of covered vehicles manufactured by the manufacturer of such vehicle, which are sold for use in the United States, is greater than 200,000. Covered vehicles. For purposes of this subsection, the term covered vehicles means, with respect to vehicles placed in service before January 1st, 2023, new qualified plug-in electric drive motor vehicles, as in effect on December 31st, 2022. And new clean vehicles. C-control groups. Rules similar to the rules of Section 30B shall apply for purposes of this subsection. CA Section 30D is amended. In paragraph. In clause by inserting and after the comma at the end. In clause by striking and inserting a period. By striking clause. 931. In paragraph 1. In clause by inserting and after 2 the comma at the end. 3. In clause by striking the comma 4 at the end and inserting a period and 5. By striking clauses through. D. The amendments made by 7. This section shall apply to vehicles placed in service after December 8, 31, 2025. 9 SC 1 Termination of qualified commercial 10 clean vehicles credit. Section 45W is amended to 12 read as follows. 13. I in general. No credit shall be deter 15 mined under this section with respect to any vehicle 16 acquired after December 31st, 2025. 17. Exception for binding contract. 18 paragraph shall not apply with respect to VHI 19 clues placed in service before January 1st, 2033, and 20 acquired pursuant to a written binding contract and 21 turned into before May 12th, 2025. 22. The amendment made by 23. This section shall apply to vehicles acquired after December 24 or 31, 2025. 932. SEC 112,004. Termination of alternative fuel VHI 1 co-refueling property credit. IG Section 30C is amended by 3 striking December 31st, 2032, and inserting December 4th, 31, 2025. ED. The amendment made by 6. This section shall apply to property placed in service after December 7th, 31, 2025. A. EC 120. Termination of energy efficient home 9 improvement credit. IG Section 25C is amended to read 11 as follows. 12. This section shall not apply 13 with respect to any property placed in service after December 14/31, 2025. CA 16. Section 25C is amended to read as 17 follows. 18. Any oil furnace or hot water boiler 19, which is placed in service before January 1st, 2026, and 21. Meets or exceeds 2021 Energy 22-star efficiency criteria, and 23 is rated by the manufacturer for 24 use, with fuel blends at least 20% of 25. 933. The volume of which consists of an eligible one fuel. ED. The amendments made by 3 this section shall apply to property placed in service after December 4th, 31, 2025. S6. Termination of residential clean N67. G. Section 25D is amended by 8 striking December 31st, 2034, and inserting December 9th, 31, 2025. CA Section 25D is 11 amended 12. In paragraph, by inserting and after 13 the comma at the end 14. In paragraph, by striking January 1st, 1523, 30%, and inserting January 1st, 2026, 16, 30% and 17. By striking paragraphs and 18. ED. The amendments made by 19 this section shall apply to property placed in service after December 20th, 31, 2025. 21 SCC 1207. Termination of new energy efficient 2223. IG. Section 45L is amended to 24 read as follows 25. 934. T. This section shall not apply to any qualified new energy efficient home acquired after December 31, 2025. 5. ED. The amendment made by 6 this section shall apply to homes acquired after December 7th, 31, 2025. 8 SCC 108. Phase out and restrictions on Clean 9 electricity production credit. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. By striking paragraphs and in 17, inserting the following new paragraph. 18. The phase out 19 percentage under this paragraph is equal to 20. For a facility placed in service during 21 calendar year 2029, 80%, 22. For a facility placed in service during 23 calendar year 2030, 60%, 24. B. Section 45Y is amended. In paragraph, in the matter preceding subparagraph, by striking the construction of which begins during a calendar year described in paragraph and inserting which is placed in service after December 31st, 2028, and 935. For a facility placed in service during calendar year 2031, 40%. For a facility placed in service after December 31st, 2031, 0%. RPF Section 45 is amended. In subsection, by adding at the end the following new subparagraph. Material assistance from prohibited foreign entities. The term qualified facility shall not include any facility for which construction begins after the date that is 1 year after the date of the enactment of this subparagraph if the construction of such facility includes any material assistance from a prohibited foreign entity. In subsection, by adding at the end the following new paragraph. Are restrictions relating to prohibited foreign entities. I. No credit determined under subsection shall be allowed under Section 38 for any taxable year beginning after the date of enactment of this paragraph if the tax. 936. Payer is a specified foreign entity. Oh, they're prohibited foreign enti 3. No credit determined under subsection 4. Shall be allowed under Section 38 for any 5 taxable year beginning after the date which is 6. 2 years after the date of enactment of this 7 paragraph, if 8. The taxpayer is a foreign influ 9 enst entity, or 11 during such taxable year the 12 taxpayer 13. Makes a payment of divvy 14 dens. Interest compensation for serve 15 ices. Rentals or royalties. guarantees 16 or any other fixed, determinable in 17 newel or periodic amount to a prohib 18-ided foreign entity in an amount which 20 is equal to or greater than 5%, 21 of the total of such payments made by 22 such taxpayer during such taxable 23 year, which are related to the product 20 portion of electricity, or 25. 937 makes payments described 1 in subclause to more than 1 prohibited foreign entity 3 in an amount which, in the aggregate, 4 is equal to or greater than 15%, 5 of the total of such payments made by 6 such taxpayer during such taxable 7 year, which are related to the product H of electricity. Repeal of T section 1064-18 is amended 11 in subparagraph by striking 12 and 13 in subparagraph by striking or 14 and inserting or 15. DR relating to PF 16. Section 7701 is amended by adding 17 at the end the following new paragraphs. 18 prohibited foreign entity. I in general. The term prohibited 20 foreign entity means a specified foreign entity 21 or a foreign influenced entity. 22. Specified foreign entity. For 23 purposes of subparagraph, the term specie 24-fied foreign entity means 25. 938. A foreign entity of concern described in subparagraph or section 9901 of the William M. Thornberry National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2021. 123456. An entity identified as a Chinese military company operating in the United States in accordance with Section 1260H of the William M. Thornberry National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2021. An entity included on a list required by clause or of Section 2 of Public Law 11778. 939. The government of a covered nation of Title 10, United States Code. A person who is a citizen, national, or resident of a covered nation, provided that such person is not an individual who is a citizen or lawful permanent resident of the United States, an entity or a qualified business unit incorporated or organized under the laws of, or having its principal place of business in a covered nation, or an entity controlled by an entity described in clause or 940. A single specified foreign entity owns at least 10% of such entity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 25% of the 7 debt of such entity is held in the aggregate by 1 or more specified for 9 entities, or 10 which, during the previous tax 11 able year, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. 1 or more specified foreign entities own in the aggregate at least 25% of such entity, or makes a payment of dividends, interest, compensation for services, rentals or royalties, guarantees or any other fixed, determinable, annual, or periodic amount to a specified foreign entity in an amount which is equal to or greater than 10% of the total of such payments made by such entity during such taxable year, or makes payments described in subclause to more than 1 specified foreign entity in an amount. 941. Which, in the aggregate, is equal to or 1 greater than 25% of the total of 2 such payments made by such entity 3 during such taxable year. 4 clause shall not apply unless such entity 5 tie makes such payments knowingly. 7c. For purposes of 8 this paragraph, the term covered officer 9 means, with respect to an entity, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. A member of the Board of Directors, Board of Supervisors, or equivalent governing body, an executive level officer, including the President, Chief Executive Officer, Chief Operating Officer, Chief Financial Officer, General Counsel, or Senior Vice President, or an individual having powers or 19 responsibilities similar to those of officers to or members described in clause or 21 determination of control. For 22 purposes of subparagraph, the term 23 control means 24. 942. 942. In the case of a partnership, ownership of more than 50% of the profits, interests, or capital interests in such partnership, or in any other case, ownership of more than 50% of the beneficial interests in the entity. Determination of ownership. For purposes of this section, Section 318 thereof shall apply for purposes of determining ownership of stock in a corporation. Similar principles shall apply for purposes of determining ownership of interests in any other entity. Regulations and guidance. The Secretary may prescribe such regulations and guidance as may be necessary or appropriate to carry out the provisions of this paragraph. Material assistance from a prohibited foreign entity. 943. In general, the term material assistance from a prohibited foreign entity means, with respect to any property, any component, subcomponent, or applicable critical mineral included in such property that is extracted, processed, recycled, manufactured, or assembled by a prohibited foreign entity. Any design of such property which is based on any copyright or patent held by a prohibited foreign entity, or any know-how or trade secret provided by a prohibited foreign entity. In general, the term material assistance from a prohibited foreign entity shall not include any assembly part or constituent material, provided that such part or material is not acquired directly from a prohibited foreign entity. For purposes of this subparagraph, the term assembly part means a subcomponent or collection of subcomponents, which is 944. Not uniquely designed for one use in the construction of a qualified two facility described in Section 45Y or 348E, or an eligible component 4 described in Section 45X, and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, not exclusively or predominantly 18 nantly produced, processed, or X19 tracted by prohibited foreign entities. 20R regulations and GID 21. The Secretary may prescribe such 22 regulations and as may be NEC 23 necessary or appropriate to carry out the Pro 24 visions of this paragraph. 25. Not exclusively or predominantly produced by prohibited foreign entities. C. Constituent material. For purposes of this subparagraph, the term constituent material means any material which is not uniquely formulated for use in a qualified facility described in Section 45Y or 48E, or an eligible component described in Section 45X and 945. Except as provided in paragraph, the amendments made by this section shall apply to taxable years beginning after the date of enactment of this Act. Other provisions. The amendment made by subsection shall apply to facilities for which construction begins after the date that is 2 years after the date of enactment of this Act. SEC 112,009. Phase out and restrictions on clean electricity investment credit. P. Section 48E is amended. In paragraph, in the matter preceding subparagraph, by striking the construction of which begins during a calendar year described in paragraph and inserting which is placed in service after December 31st, 2028, by striking paragraphs and inserting the following. The phase-out percentage under this paragraph is equal to, for any qualified investment with respect to any qualified facility or energy storage technology placed in service during calendar year 2029, 80%, 946. For any qualified investment with -1 rupee, spec to any qualified facility or energy storage, to technology placed in service during calendar 3, year 2030, 60%. For any qualified investment with respect to any qualified facility or energy storage technology placed in service during calendar year 2031, 40%, and 5, 6, 7, 8. For any qualified investment with RE9 spec to any qualified facility or energy storage, 10 technology placed in service after December 31st, 11/20/31, 0%. 12. RPF 14. I, Section 48E, is amended at 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. In subsection by adding at the end the following new subparagraph. Material assistance from prohibited foreign entities. The term qualified facility shall not include any facility the construction of which begins after the date that is 1 year after the date of the enactment of this subparagraph, if the construction of such facility includes any material assistance from 947. Prohibited foreign entity. And in subsection by adding at the end the following new paragraph. Material assistance from prohibited foreign entities. The term energy storage technology shall not include any property the construction of which begins after the date that is 1 year after the date of the enactment of this paragraph, if the construction of such property includes any material assistance from a prohibited foreign entity. Are restrictions relating to prohibited foreign entities. Section 48E is amended by adding at the end the following new paragraph. Restrictions relating to prohibited foreign entities. No credit determined under subsection shall be allowed under Section 38 for any taxable year beginning after the date of enactment of this paragraph, if the taxpayer is a specified foreign entity. The prohibited foreign entity. No credit determined under subsection 948 shall be allowed under Section 38 for any one taxable year beginning after the date which is 2 years after the date of enactment of this paragraph, if 4. The taxpayer is a foreign influ 5th entity, or 7 during such taxable year, the 8 taxpayer 9 makes a payment of dividends, interest, compensation for serve 11 ICEs, rentals or royalties, guarantees 12 or any other fixed, determinable, and 13 newel, or periodic amount to a prohib 14 ided foreign entity, in an amount which 16 is equal to or greater than 5% 17 of the total of such payments, made by 18 such taxpayer during such taxable 19 year which are related to the product 20 of electricity or storage of energy, 21 or 22. Makes payments described in subclause to more than one prohibited foreign entity. 949. In an amount which, in the aggregate, is equal to or greater than 15% of the total of such payments made by such taxpayer during such taxable year, which are related to the production of electricity or storage of energy. Section 50 is amended by redesignating paragraphs through as paragraphs through, respectively, by inserting after paragraph the following new paragraph. Payments to prohibited foreign entities. If there is an applicable payment made by a specified taxpayer before the close of the 10-year period, beginning on the date such taxpayer placed in service investment credit property, which is eligible for the Clean Electricity Investment Credit under Section 48E, then the tax under this chapter for the taxable year in which such applicable payment occurs shall be increased by 100% of the aggregate decrease in the credits. 950. Load under Section 38 for all prior taxable years which would have resulted solely from reducing to zero any determined under Section 46, which is attributable to the Clean Electricity Investment Credit under Section 48E with respect to such property. Applicable payment. For purposes of this paragraph, the term applicable payment means with respect to any taxable year, a payment or payments described in subclause or of Section 48E. Specified taxpayer. For purposes of this paragraph, the term specified taxpayer means any taxpayer who has been allowed a credit under Section 48E for any taxable year beginning after the date which is 2 years after the date of enactment of this paragraph. In paragraph, as redesignated by subparagraph, by striking or any applicable transaction to which paragraph applies, and inserting any applicable transaction to which paragraph applies, or any applicable payment to which paragraph applies. 951. In paragraph as redesignated by subparagraph by striking or and inserting or. Repeal of T since 6418 as amended by Section 11208 is amended In subsection by striking clause. In subsection by striking clauses. Through and inserting clause or CA section 48E is amended. In subparagraph by striking after the date that is 4 years after the date of the allocation with respect to the facility of which such property is a part, and inserting the earlier of the date that is 4 years after the date of the allocation with respect. In subparagraph by striking December 31 of the applicable year and inserting December 31st, 2031. In subparagraph by striking the third calendar year following the applicable year and inserting 2031 and 952 to the facility of which such property 1 is a part, or 2, December the 1st, 2031. 3-4. I accept as provided in para 5 graph. The amendments made by this section 6 shall apply to taxable years beginning after the date 7 of enactment of this act. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 SEC 112010. Repeal of transferability of clean 14 fuel production credit. IG section 6418 as amend 16 ed by sections 112008 and 11209 is amended by striking 17 clause. ED. The amendment made by 19 this section shall apply to fuel produced after December 20th, 31, 2027. 21. Other provisions. The amendments made by subsection shall apply to facilities and energy storage technology for which construction begins after the date that is 2 years after the date of enactment of this act. 953. Are restrictions relating to prohib 6-sided foreign entities. 7. I. No credit determined under subsection shall be allowed under Section 38 for any taxable year, beginning after the date of enactment of this paragraph, if the taxpayer is a specified foreign entity. Other prohibited foreign entity. No credit determined under subsection shall be allowed under Section 38 for any taxable year beginning after the date which is 2 years after the date of enactment of this paragraph, if the taxpayer is a foreign influenced entity. 954. In subparagraph, in the matter preceding clause by striking clause, or and inserting clause, or in clause by striking, are restrictions relating to prohibited foreign entities. The amendments made by subsection shall apply to taxable years, beginning after the date of enactment of this act. Our repeal of transferability. The amendments made by subsection shall apply to carbon capture equipment, the construction of which begins after the date that is 2 years after the date of enactment of this act. SEC 112,012. Phase out and restrictions on zero-emission nuclear power production credit. P-out. Section 45U is amended to read as follows. In general, for any taxable year beginning after December 31st, 2028, the amount of the 955. Zero-emission nuclear power production credit under one subsection for such taxable year shall be equal to the product of 3. The amount of the credit determined 4 under subsection without regard to this sub-5 section, multiplied by 6. The phase-out percentage under para 7 graph. The phase-out 9 percentage under this paragraph is equal to 10. For any taxable year beginning in Cal 11 end our year 2029, 80%, 12. For any taxable year beginning in Cal 13 end our year 2030, 60%, 14. For any taxable year beginning in Cal 15 end our year 2031, 40%, and 16. For any taxable year beginning after December 17, 31, 2031, 0%. 18. RPD. Section 45U is amended by adding 20 at the end the following new paragraph, 21. Restrictions relating to prohibited 22 foreign entities. 23. No credit determined 24 under subsection shall be allowed under Sec 25. 956. Section 38, for any taxable year beginning after the date of enactment of this paragraph, if the taxpayer is a specified foreign entity. Oh, they're prohibited foreign entity. No credit determined under subsection shall be allowed under Section 38 for any taxable year beginning after the date which is 2 years after the date of enactment of this paragraph, if the taxpayer is a foreign influenced entity. REPL of T, Section 6418, as amended by Section 11008, 112009, 12010, and 112011, is amended by striking clause I, except as provided in paragraph, the amendments made by this section shall apply to taxable years beginning after the date of enactment of this Act. Repeal of transferability. The amendment made by subsection shall apply to electricity produced and sold after December 31st, 2027. 957. SEC 112,013. Termination of clean hydrogen product 1-2. T. Section 45V is amend 3 ed by striking January 1st, 2033, and inserting January 4th, 2026. ED. The amendment made by 6 this section shall apply to facilities the construction of 7, which begins after December 31st, 2025. HCC 1-2. Phase out and restrictions on Ad 9 advanced manufacturing production 1011. Section 45X is amended 12. In subparagraph 13. In clause by adding and at the 14 and 15. In clause by striking during Cal 16 and R year 2032 25%, and inserting 17 after December 31st, 2031 0%, and 18. By striking clause in 19. By striking subparagraph and inserting 20 the following, 21. Termination for wind energy 22. This section shall not apply to 23 wind energy components after December 24th, 31, 2027. 958. RPF 1E, Section 5 is amended. In subsection by adding at the end 3 the following new subparagraph. 4. Material assistance from Pro 5 prohibited foreign entities. In the case of 6 taxable years beginning after the date which is 7. 2 years after the date of enactment of this sub-8 paragraph, the term eligible component shall not include any property which 10. Includes any material assistance 11 from a prohibited foreign entity. Or 13 is produced subject to a licensing 14 agreement with a prohibited foreign entity 15. For 16, which the value of such agreement is an X17 cess of $1 million, and 18. In subsection, by adding at the end the 19 following new paragraph, 20. Restrictions relating to prohibited 21 foreign entities. 22. No credit determined 23 under subsection shall be allowed under Sec 24 38 for any taxable year beginning after the 25. 959. Date of enactment of this paragraph if the taxpayer is a specified foreign entity. Oh, they're prohibited foreign entity. No credit determined under subsection shall be allowed under Section 38 for any taxable year beginning after the date which is 2 years after the date of enactment of this paragraph if the taxpayer is a foreign influenced entity. Payments to prohibited foreign. If, for any taxable year beginning after the date that is 2 years after the date of the enactment of this paragraph, a taxpayer is described in clause for such taxable year with respect to any eligible component category, no credit shall be determined under subsection for eligible components in such eligible component category for such taxable year. Taxpayer described. A taxpayer is described in this clause for a tax. 960. Able year with respect to any eligible component category of such taxpayer 2 makes a payment of divvy 3 dens, interest compensation for served 4 ices, rentals or royalties, guarantees 5 or any other fix, determinable in 6 newel, or periodic amount to a prohib 7 ided foreign entity, in an amount which 9 is equal to or greater than 5% 10 of the total of such payments made by 11 such taxpayer during such taxable 12 year which are related to the product. 13 shin of eligible components included 14 within such eligible component at 15 egree 16 makes payments described in subclause to more than one prohibited foreign entity in an amount which, in the aggregate, is equal to or greater than 15% of such payments made by such taxpayer during such taxable year which are related to the production of LGI. 961 components included within such one eligible component category. 2 eligible component cat 3. For purposes of this subpara 4 graph, the term eligible component cat 5 egree means eligible components, which 6 are included within each respective clause 7 under subsection. REPL of T, section 6418-9 as amended by sections 11208, 11209, 1121010, 10-12011, and 11212 is amended. 11. In subsection 12. In subparagraph 13. By striking clause in 14. By redesignating clauses 15 and as clauses and re-16 respectively and 17. In subparagraph by striking 18 clause or and inserting clause or 19. And 20. In subsection, by striking clause 21 or and inserting clause 22. ED 23. I, except as provided in para 24 graph, the amendments made by this section 25, 962, shall apply to taxable years beginning after the date of enactment of this act. Repeal of transferability. The amendments made by subsection shall apply to components sold after December 31st, 2027. SEC 112,015. Phase out of credit for certain energy 6-7. P. Section 48 is amended. In paragraph, by striking the construction of which begins before January 1st, 2035 and inserting the construction of which begins before January 1st, 2032, and by striking paragraph and inserting the following new paragraph. P out for certain energy prop. In the case of any energy property described in clause of paragraph, the energy percentage determined under paragraph shall be equal to. In the case of any property, the construction of which begins before January 1st, 2030, and which is placed in service after December 31st, 2021, 6%, 963. 2029, and before January 1st, 2031, 5.2%, and in the case of any property the construction of which begins after December 31st, 2030, and before January 1st, 2032, 4.4%. RPFE, Section 48 is amended by redesignating paragraph as paragraph, and by inserting after paragraph the following new paragraph, are restrictions relating to prohibited foreign entities. No credit determined under this subsection for energy property described in paragraph shall be allowed under Section 38 for any taxable year beginning after the date of enactment of this paragraph if the taxpayer is a specified foreign entity. They're prohibited foreign entity. No credit determined under this subsection for energy property described in paragraph shall be allowed under Section 38 for any taxable year beginning after the date which is 2 years after the date of enactment of 964. This paragraph if the taxpayer is a foreign influ-1 entity. 3. Repeal of T. Section 46418 as redesignated by Section 112014 is 5 amended by inserting of such section after Section 48. Except as provided in paragraph, the amendments made by this section shall apply to taxable years beginning after the date of the enactment of this Act. Repeal of transferability. The amendments made by subsection shall apply to property the construction of which begins after the date that is 2 years after the date of enactment of this Act. SEC 112,016. Income from hydrogen storage. Carbon capture added to qualifying income of certain publicly traded partnerships treated as corporations. IG Section 7704 is amended. 965. By striking income and gains derived from one, the exploration, and inserting income and gains two derived from the exploration, 4. By inserting or before industrial, 5, source, and 6. By striking the transportation or storage, 7, and all that follows, and inserting the following: 8, the transportation or storage, 9 of 10. Any fuel described in sub 11 section or of sec 12 shin 6426, or any alcohol fuel defined 13 in section 6426, or any bio 14 diesel fuel as defined in section 1540A, or sustainable aviation fuel 16 as defined in section 40B, or 17 liquefied hydrogen or COM 18 pressed hydrogen, or 19 in the case of a qualified facility, 20 without re-21 guard to any date by which construction of 22 the facility is required to begin, not less 23 than 50% of the total. Carbon oxide 24. 966. Production of which is qualified carbon 1 oxide 2. The generation availability 3 for such generation or storage of electric power at such facility, or 5 the capture of carbon dioxide by such facility. 7. ED. The amendments made by 8 this section shall apply to taxable years beginning after December 9th, 31, 2025. SC Review 7. Limitation on amortization of certain 11 sports franchises. 12. IG, Section 197 is amended by reads 13 ignating subsection as subsection and by inserting 14 after subsection the following new subsection, 15. Limitation amortization of C16SF. I in general. In the case of a specified 18 sports franchise intangible, subsection shall be 19 applied by substituting 50% of the adjusted 20 basis for the adjusted basis. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Specified sports franchise intan. For purposes of this subsection, the term specified sports franchise intangible means any amortizable section 197 intangible, which is 967. A franchise to engage in professional 1 football, basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, or 2 other professional sport, or 3 acquired in connection with such a 4 franchise. ED. The amendments made by 6 this section shall apply to property acquired after the date 7 of the enactment of this Act. SEC 112018. Limitation on individual deductions for 9 certain state and local taxes, etc. IG Section 275 is amended by reads 11 ignating subsection as subsection and by inserting 12 after subsection the following new subsection, 13. It is 15. I in the case of an Indy 17 visual, no deduction shall be allowed for 18. Any disallowed foreign real prop 19 ERD taxes, and 20 any specified taxes to the extent 21 that such taxes for such taxable year in 22 the aggregate exceed 23. 968. $15,000 in the case of a 1 married individual filing a separate 2 return, and $30,000 in the case of any 4 other taxpayer. Pays down based on modified 6 adjusted gross income. 7. I in general, except as pro-8 divided in clause, the $15,000 amount in 9 subparagraph and the $30,000 10 amount in subparagraph shall 11 each be reduced by 20% of the X12 cess of the taxpayer's modified add 13 adjusted gross income over 14. $200,000 in the case of a 15 married individual filing a separate 16 return, and $400,000 in the case of 18 any other taxpayer. 19 a limitation on reduction. 20 the reduction under clause shall not reach 21 salt in 22. The dollar amount in effect 23 under subparagraph being 24 less than $5,000 or 25. 969. The dollar amount in effect 1 under subparagraph being 2 less than $10,000. 3. Modified adjusted gross in 4. For purposes of this paragraph, The five-term modified adjusted gross income means 6 adjusted gross income increased by any amount, 7 excluded from gross income under Section 911, 931, or 933. Disallowed foreign real property 10. For purposes of this subsection, the term 11 disallowed foreign real property tax means any tax 12 which 13 is a foreign real property tax to 14 scribed in section 164, 216, and 15 is not an accepted tax. Specified tax. For purposes of this 17 subsection, the term specified tax means 18. Any tax which 19 is described in paragraph 20 or of section 164, section 164.21, or section 216. And 22 is not an accepted tax, or a dis 23 allowed foreign real property tax, and 24. Any substitute payment. 25. 970. Accepted tax. For purposes of this subsection, in general, the term accepted tax means any foreign tax described in section 164. Any tax described in section 164 which is paid or accrued by a qualifying entity with respect to carrying on a qualified trade or business, without regard to section 199A, and any tax described in paragraph or of section 164 or section 216, which is paid or accrued in carrying on a trade or business or an activity described in section 212. Qualifying entity. For purposes of subparagraph, the term qualifying entity means any partnership or S corporation with gross receipts for the taxable year, if at least 75% of such gross receipts are derived in a qualified trade or business, without regard to section 971. 199A. For purposes of the preceding sentence, the gross receipts of all trades or businesses which are under common control with any trade or business of the partnership or S corporation shall be taken into account as gross receipts of the entity. For purposes of this subsection, in general, the term substitute payment means any amount paid, incurred, or accrued to any entity referred to in section 164 if, under the laws of one or more entities referred to in section 164, one or more persons would, and applied, be entitled to specified tax benefits the aggregate dollar value of which equals or exceeds 25% of such amount. Assumption regarding value of tax benefits. The assumption described in this subparagraph is that the dollar value of a specified tax benefit is 972. In the case of a credit or refund, the amount of such credit or refund. In the case of a deduction or exclusion, 15% of the amount of such deduction or exclusion. In any other case, an amount determined in such manner as the Secretary may provide consistent with the principles of clauses. Assumption regarding status of partners or shareholders. The assumption described in this subparagraph is in the case of any amount referred to in subparagraph, which is paid, incurred, or accrued by a partnership or S corporation, that all of the partners or shareholders of such partnership or S corporation, respectively, are individuals who are residents of the jurisdiction of the entity or entities providing the specified tax benefits. Specified tax benefit. For purposes of subparagraph, the term specified tax benefit means any benefit which 973 is determined with respect to the amount referred to in subparagraph, is allowed against, or determined by reference to a tax described in paragraph. The exception for non-deductible. To the extent that a deduction for an amount described in subparagraph is not allowed under this chapter, Section 703, Section 704, and Section 1363, the term substitute payment shall not include such amount. Exception for certain withholding taxes. To the extent provided in regulations issued by the Secretary, the term substitute payment shall not include an amount withheld on behalf of another person if all of such amount is included in the gross income of such person. The Secretary shall issue such regulations or other guidance as may be necessary or appropriate to carry out the purposes of 974. This subsection, including regulations or other guidance, to treat as a tax described in paragraph of section 164, any tax that is, in substance, based on general tax principles described in such paragraph, to provide for the proper allocation, for purposes of paragraph, of taxes described in section 164 between trades or business described in section 199A and trades or business not so described, and to otherwise prevent the avoidance of the purposes of this subsection. Estate and LIT paid by partnerships and SCT and DUAS separately by Partner and I. Section 702 is amended to read as follows. Taxes described in section 901, paid or accrued to foreign countries, to treat as a substitute payment any amount that, in substance, substitutes for a specified tax. 975. Taxes described in section 901, paid or accrued to possessions of the United States. 2. Specified taxes, other than taxes described in sub 4 graph and 5. Taxes described in section 275. Treatment of substitute payments. 7. Section 702 is amended by redesignating subsection 8 as subsection and by inserting after sub 9 section the following new subsection. 10. TSP, any 11 substitute payment, shall 12 be taken into account under subsection and not 13 under any other paragraph of subsection. 14. D-ICE allowance of deduction to Part 15. Section 703 is amended to 16, read as follows. 17. Any deduction under this Chapter 18 with respect to taxes or payments described in 19 Section 702. 20. S. For corresponding Pro 21 visions related to S corporations, which apply by RIA 22 son of the amendments made by paragraphs 23 through see Sections 1366 and 1363-24 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986. 25. 976. Allowable SALT deductions taken into account for purposes of limitation on partnership losses. Section 704 is amended by striking subparagraph, by redesignating subparagraph as subparagraph, and by inserting before subparagraph the following new subparagraphs. I. In general, in determining the amount of any loss under paragraph, there shall be taken into account the partner's distributive share of amounts described in paragraphs and of Section 702. If the taxpayer chooses to take to any extent the benefits of Section 901, the partner's distributive share of amounts described in Section 702, and the amount by which the deductions allowed under this chapter to the partner would decrease if the partner's distributive share of amounts described in Section 702 were not taken into account. 977. Reatement of possession taxes. 1. An event partner does not elect the 2 foreign tax credit. In the case of a tax-3 payer not described in subparagraph 4, subparagraph shall be applied by sub 5 stituting subparagraphs and of Section 6702 for Section 702. C. On forming amendment. Section 856 is amended by inserting, or for any 9 substitute payment, before the period at the end. C. X. 13. I. In general. Part 1 of Subchapter A of 14, Chapter 68 is amended by at the end the full 15 lowing new section 16 SEC. 6659 State and Local Tax Allocation Miss 1718. IG. In the case of any covered in 919 visual, there shall be added to the tax imposed under Sec 20 1 for the taxable year an amount equal to the product 21 of 22. The highest rate of tax in effect under such 23 section for such taxable year, multiplied by 24. 978. The sum of the state and local tax alloca one-shin mismatches for such taxable year with respect to each partnership's specified tax payment with respect to which such individual is a covered in D4 visual is entitled to 1 or 10 more specified tax benefits with respect to such pay 11 met and 12. Takes into account 13 any item of income, gain, deduction, loss, or credit 14 of the partnership which made such payment. Tate and M16. For purposes of this section 17. CI, for purposes of the sixth section, the term covered individual means, with respect 7, to any partnership specified tax payment, any individual 8 who 9. I, the term state and local 18 tax allocation mismatch means, with respect to any 19 partnership specified tax payment, the excess of 21. The aggregate dollar value of the 22 specified tax benefits of the covered individual 23, with respect to such payment over 24. 979. The amount of such payment taken into account by such individual under Section 702 and 704. Taxable year of individual in which mismatch taken into account. In the case of any partnership specified tax payment paid, incurred, or accrued in any taxable year of the partnership, the state and local tax allocation mismatch determined under paragraph with respect to such payment shall be taken into account under subsection by the covered individual for the taxable year of such individual in which such individual takes into account the items referred to in subsection which are determined with respect to such partnership taxable year. Determination of DVSTB. Except in the case of a covered individual who elects the application of paragraph for any taxable year, the dollar value of any specified tax benefit shall be the sum of the aggregate increase in tax liability for taxes described in Section 275 for the taxable 980 year and all prior taxable years that would result if such specified tax benefit were not taken into account with respect to such taxes, plus the deemed value of any carry forward of such specified tax benefit to any subsequent taxable year. Deemed value of carry forwards. For purposes of paragraph, the deemed value of any carry forward is, in the case of a credit or refund, the amount of such credit or refund. In the case of a deduction or exclusion, the product of the highest rate of tax which may be imposed on individuals under the tax referred to in subsection with respect to the specified tax benefit multiplied by the amount of such deduction or exclusion, and in any other case, an amount determined in such manner as the Secretary may provide consistent with the principles of subparagraphs. 981. Election of simplified method. In the case of a covered individual who elects the application of this paragraph for any taxable year, the dollar value of any specified tax benefit shall be determined under the assumptions described in Section 275. OD definitions. So for purposes of this section 8, partnership specified tax pay. The term partnership specified tax payment means any specified tax paid, incurred, or accrued by a partnership. The term specified tax has the meaning given such term by Section 275. Specified tax benefit. The term specified tax benefit means any benefit is determined with respect to a partnership specified tax payment and is allowed against or determined by reference to a tax described in Section 275. The Secretary shall issue such regulations or other guidance as may be necessary or appropriate to carry out the purposes of this section, include 982. Regulations or other guidance preventing avoidance of 1. The addition to tax prescribed by this section through Part 2 NERSHIP allocations that achieve similar tax reductions. 3. A state and local tax allocation mismatch. Clerical amendment. The table of sec 5 for Part 1 of Subchapter A of Chapter 68 is 6 amended by adding at the end the following new 7 item. 8 sec. 6659 state and local tax allocation mismatch. L capitalization of S19. Section 275, as amended by the preceding Provi 10 scions of this section, is amended by redesignating sub 11 section as subsection, and by inserting after sub 12 section the following new subsection, 13. L imitations on C capitalization of S14T, notwithstanding any other provision of 15 this chapter, in the case of an individual, specified taxes 16, shall not be treated as 17 chargeable to capital account. 18. Partnership SC new ST 20 by 21. Section 6031 is amended 22 by adding at the end the following new subsection. 23. ST is for returns required under subsection and copies 25. 983. Required to be furnished under subsection shall in one include a statement of whether or not the partnership had any gross receipts. 3. From a trade or business described in subsection 4199A. S. Section 6037 is amend 6 ed by adding at the end the following new sub 7 section 8. ST. Returns required under subsection and copies 10 required to be furnished under subsection shall in 11 include a statement of whether or not the S corporation had 12 any gross receipts. 13. From a business described in subsection 14199A. 15. CA section 164 is 16 amended by striking paragraph 17. ED. The amendments made by 18 this section shall apply to taxable years beginning after December 19th, 31, 2025. 20. 984. SEC 112,019. Excessive employee remuneration from one controlled group members and allocation of deduction. 3. AAR section 4162 is amended by adding at the end the following new 5 paragraph 6. Are remuneration from controlled 7. 8. In general. In the case of any 9 publicly held corporation which is a member of 10 a controlled 11. Paragraph shall be applied by 12 substituting specified covered employee 13 for covered employee and 14 if any person which is a member 15 of such controlled group provides applica. 17 will employee remuneration to an individual 18 who is a specified covered employee of 19 controlled group and the aggregate amount 20 described in subparagraph with re 21 to such specified covered employee 22 exceeds $1 million. 23. Paragraph shall apply to 24 such person with respect to such re 25 remuneration and 26. 985. Paragraph shall apply 1 to such publicly held corporation, and 2 to each such related person by sub 3 instituting the allocable limitation for amount for $1 million. Allocable limitation amount. For purposes of this paragraph, the term allocable limitation amount means, with respect to any member of the controlled group referred to in subparagraph, with respect to any specified covered employee of such controlled group, the amount which bears the same ratio to $1 million as the amount of applicable employee remuneration provided by such member with respect to such specified covered employee bears to the aggregate amount of applicable employee remuneration provided by all such members with respect to such specified covered employee. Specified covered employee. For purposes of this paragraph, the term specified covered employee means with respect to any controlled group. 986.
Welcome to Executive Order Watch.
The immigrants have arrived.
I know. I have the package.